MeMonster.
It's about the multi-academy exchange. Listening to Donna, I couldn't help but massage my forehead. Damn, with everything that had been going on lately, I forgot all about this. Well, more than me forgetting about this, it was more like it slipped my mind. After all, we still had a couple of more months before this event would happen. As most of you know, during the month of March, we will have exchange students staying at the Lock for a month in preparation for the Multi-Academy Youth Tournament. This time, the Academy has decided that only students from the 4 great academies will participate in the exchange, as the district and regional academies have agreed to exchange with one another. Listening to Donna speak, I couldn't help but find my brows knitting slightly. The 4 great academies. The 4 other human academies that could almost rival the Lock in terms of their educational system. Though they weren't on the same level, they were the closest substitute out there. Lutwick Academy, Theodora Academy, Kusk Academy, Velen Academy. Those were the names of the 4 great academies. The human domain had 5 great cities: Ashton City, Park City, Lewington City, Dromda City, and Conviction City. Altaf, each city wasn't far from each other because of the threat coming from beasts and villains along the way. It took about 5 hours for a person to make it to one of those cities, with Ashton City being the reference point. Thus, if a person from one of those cities wanted to send their child to the Lock, they would have to send them all the way to Ashton City. As a result of this, they may not be able to see their children for a very long time. Some people were willing to do that for the sake of their children's future, while some couldn't do it. Be it for economical problems or the fact that they couldn't part ways with their children, some just couldn't send them all the way to Ashton City to make them join the Lock. And that became an issue. A lot of talents weren't being nurtured properly. Very talented individuals that could rival some of the most talented people in the Lock were being provided with lower-end education. This was a big problem that cost humanity a lot of talented people. Noticing this situation, each city mayor, with the permission and sponsorship of the central government, decided to set up their own academy. One that would be the pillar of their city. Of course, each city mayor wasn't selfless enough to set up an academy for the greater good of humanity. The main reason why they built their academy was to retain their talents and keep them in their city so that in the future they would become high-ranked heroes that represented their city. After all, each city was currently in a tough struggle against the demons. And that's how the 4 great academies came to be. 4 academies that, although weren't at the level of the Lock, were the closest thing someone could get to the Lock. Lutwick Academy, Park City. Theodora Academy, Lewington City. Kusk Academy, Dromda City. Velen Academy, Conviction City. Anyways, although most of you know that information already, that's not the reason why I brought the topic up. Pausing, Donna took out a pile of papers and placed them on the podium before her. Right here on the podium before me, there are application forms that you guys need to fill in order to apply for an academy exchange with one of the 4 great academies. Since this year it's the 4 great academies' turn to do an exchange to the Lock, next year, during your second year, it will obviously be your turn. Right. So basically in the month of March, our class will be filled with exchange students coming from the 4 great academies. I already knew who some of them were, as they were either going to become Kevin's ally in the near future or become Kevin's enemy. Couldn't be helped, there was bound to be an arrogant person here and there. The exchange will only last a month or 2, and just like this year, it will start 2 months prior to the Multi-Academy tournament. Squinting my eyes as I listened to Donna, I glanced at the papers on the podium. Another word that had caught my attention as she spoke was the Multi-Academy tournament. As the name suggests, it was a tournament between all academies in the human domain, be it 4 great academies, the Lock, regional and district academies, they would all be there. It happens at the very end of each academic year, and it wasn't like the usual tournament arcs where it would be a 1v1 tournament to decide who was best. No. It was a tournament with many unconventional games such as the Code Breaker, Academy Virtual Guild Wars, Abyss Scavenge, Tower Defense, and many more games. Heck, one of the games was a retouched version of football. In essence, the tournament was extremely unique. More so than it being something to display the individual achievement of each student, it was more to display the academic might of each academy. It wasn't like those boring tournament games that you would usually get in novels where it just consisted of plain fighting. No, it was very different from that. Another thing about the multi-academy tournament was that it would be broadcasted throughout the whole human domain. Its popularity was enormous, rivaling the Olympics and World Cup of back then. And precisely because of its popularity, that tensions were high whenever the multi-academy tournament was near. Regarding the tournament, we will select applicants based on your performances by the end of the year, and from there, we will place you in the first-year squad that will represent the tournament. Glancing at everyone in the class, Donna brushed her ponytail to the side and continued. When we select you, you have no right to refuse. 2 months prior to the tournament, you will be exempted from all classes and will be directly put under strict training from the best professors in the academy, and during that time you are training, according to your performance, you will be placed in a squad participating in specific games. As Donna spoke, I couldn't help but notice a lot of the students beside me breathing heavily. Their reaction was understandable. After all, if they stood out, they would without a doubt gain both honor and fame, and if lucky, they could catch the interest of some of the top guilds. This tournament wasn't just a display of academic might, it was also a chance for students to shine. Anyhow, tournament aside, by filling the application form right here, you are agreeing to an exchange program with one of the 4 great academies. I personally believe that this is a great opportunity for you all, as you will get to explore a whole new city as well as a new educational system that can rival that of our very own, here in the Lock. The selection will be random, so don't expect to have your friends be in the same exchange academy as yours, as there's a high chance that you will be assigned to different places. Nodding my head as she spoke, I couldn't help but once again realize how bad of an author I was. The selection will be random. With a deadpan expression, I couldn't help but recall the fact that Kevin, Melissa, Emma, Jin, and Amanda all ended up in the same academy during the exchange. Yup. So much so for random. Clap. Clapping her hands to get everyone's attention, Donna smiled. All right, I think that's that for the announcements. You are free to take 1 application if you wish to apply for the exchange program. As she spoke, Donna started packing up her stuff. Leaving the application forms on the table, Donna briefly glanced at us before saying, "Once you're done, come find me at my office in Section B. I've already told the guards that I am expecting some students, so just show them your ID card, and they will let you, and I hope to see you later." Like that, finished with what she wanted to say, Donna directly left the classroom. "Get me one." "Me too." Soon after, like a swarm of bees, multiple students immediately headed towards the podium and took an application form. Shaking my head at the sight before me, I patiently waited for everyone to take a form before taking one for myself. Not gonna lie, the idea of going to another academy for a couple of months was tempting. After all, once Kevin and the rest went to their exchange, the plot wasn't going to move forward. Might as well just study in another academy after all. Apart from a few things, the 4 academies were just as good as the Lock. It was also not a bad idea to go visit another city whilst at it. I wanted to spread my mercenary group's influence there too. After all, Ashton City wasn't the only important place. 7:32 p.m. Section B, Lock. Walking along the corridors that lead towards the professor's office area inside of the main building of the B section, I couldn't help but feel lost. The corridors of the building seemed to stretch endlessly, and the numerous office spaces made it hard for me to find the exact location of Donna's office. I didn't know if this was because she was too humble or that she couldn't be bothered, but Donna, one of the few ranked heroes in the academy, decided to have a regular office. One that was mixed within the masses of offices in the building. Office number 948,949,950,951, and it should be this one. Arriving in front of an office space with the number 952 displayed on the side, I made sure to double-check with the data on my phone before knocking. Knock knock. Didn't want to end up knocking on the wrong door. Come in. A couple of seconds after knocking, Donna's crisp and pleasant voice traveled from the other side of the door. "Excuse me." Heeding her order, opening the door, I soon spotted Donna sitting on her desk going through a pile of files. Without glancing at me, wearing a pair of glasses, Donna's brows were knit in a tight frown. Clank. Closing the door behind me, I patiently waited by the side. It would be better if I didn't disturb her as she looked busy with something. As Donna was busy sorting out some papers, I couldn't but glance at the office. It was rather small, about the size of a bedroom. Decorations were sparse as apart from a calendar on the side of the wall, everything looked rather plain and boring. Right, there was also a small plushie next to her gray sofa on the side of the office. The lighting was also not that great. Although there was a large window on the other side of the office, it was currently nighttime, hence why it was dark outside. On top of the office, a small lamp lit the office space, however, its power wasn't very strong as the corner of the rooms were dark. It was kind of sad. "Who you don't?" 5 minutes after I came in, exhaling slightly, Donna finally finished what she was doing. Stretching her arms, Donna took off her glasses, revealing her two amethyst-like eyes. Noticing that she was done, I coughed a couple of times to get her attention. Excuse me." Surprised by my voice, Donna's brows shot up. Soon after, her head snapped in my direction. "Hi." Spotting me waiting in the corner of the room, Donna couldn't help but freeze for a couple of seconds. Shortly after, lightly sighing as she massaged her forehead, she apologized. "I'm sorry, I was so immersed with my work that I didn't notice you." Smiling understandably, I shook my head. "It's okay. I too had those kinds of moments where I would forget everything that was around me and immerse myself in my work." It was understandable. Although she did respond to my knocking, it seems like, at that time, she had subconsciously responded without being aware of the situation. Plus, it's not like I could really get angry at Donna. She was after all a S-ranked hero in the hero ranking. With just a glance, she could flatten me on the ground. Yeah, let's not get on her bad side. Glancing at me from her desk, with her brows still knit, Donna asked, "So what have you come here for?" "I am here to submit my application for the exchange." Taking out the sheet she had given to us this morning, I showed it to her. Everything from top to bottom was filled. Yes, there was that. Nodding her head, Donna pointed towards her desk. "Okay, put it on my desk here on top of the other applications." Smiling, I complied and placed the paper on her desk, on top of a pile of papers filled with sheets that were similar to mine. "All right." After making sure my application was neatly stacked on top of the files, I nodded towards Donna and proceeded to head out. "Thank you very much. Have a good day, Miss Longburn." As I was heading out, halfway through my way back to the door, I heard Donna call out for me. "Wait. Glancing at Donna in confusion, I couldn't tilt my head. Did I perhaps miss something with my application? Glancing at my application on top of the piles of papers, I couldn't notice anything missing. Maybe something else. As my confusion grew, staring at me, Donna slightly lowered her head and said, "Student Ren Dover, I would like to formally apologize." Opening my eyes wide, I froze on the spot as a small audible gasp escaped from my mouth. Hi. Why was she apologizing to me? I was genuinely beyond confused at the moment. What did Donna do to warrant an apology? Glancing at me, Donna had a meaningful look on her face. "Let me be more clear. I want to apologize for immaturely assuming that you were slacking off with your training." Snapping me out of my confusion was Donna's charming voice. However, hearing what she had said, my mouth couldn't help but twitch. Did she perhaps find out? How? I don't think she found out during the midterms, as I was sure I beat up Arnold when no one was present. I was sure that apart from Kevin and the others, no one else should have known about my abilities. Actually, aside from the midterms, there was no other way she could have found out about it. Crap. Now that I thought about it, there was one way for her to find out. Because I focused primarily on making sure no one saw me, I completely neglected the fact that Donna could tell the time it took me to kill the 79 goblins. Moreover, with me suddenly entering F rank, it was no surprise that she had caught on to something. However, I didn't know the full extent of Donna's knowledge regarding my abilities. Hopefully it was only to that point. Reading my current expression, seemingly having confirmed her suspicions, Donna smiled and said, "Anyways, enough with that. I would like to ask you a favor." "A favor?" "Yes, a favor." Once again I was confused. What kind of favor would a S-ranked hero, ranked 156th in the hero ranking, possibly ask of me? With her influence, without a doubt, she could get anything she wanted. Therefore, what could she possibly ask of me, a 16-year-old student? In the end, though skeptical, I nodded my head. "Sure." Smiling even more after hearing my confirmation, playing the pen in her hand with a faint smile on her face, Donna said, "I would like for you to participate in the tryouts for the Multi-Academy tournament in a month's time." Listening to Donna's request, everything started to click. Right, I understand now. Professors had incentives, be it for students achieving rewards or getting the best overall scores in the whole academic year. Teachers would receive a bonus as compensation for their accomplishments. And therefore, as obvious as it may seem, there was also an award for the professor that managed to get the most students into the official squad for the Multi-Academy tournament. Moreover, if the students excel in the actual tournament, their bonus would multiply by several factors. Therefore, with Donna having a rough estimate of my strength, she wanted me to participate so that she could get an extra bonus. In the end, I was put into this situation just for a measly bonus. Just why? Putting on the most beautiful smile I could muster, I nodded my head repeatedly. "A month's time, huh? I think I'm going to be sick that day." As soon as I said those words, silence prevailed in the office space. Soon after, Donna's eyes shone slightly, and instantly a slightly overbearing yet gentle pressure bore down on me. "KHA." Surprised by the sudden pressure, I couldn't help but let out a strange sound. Fortunately, although she exerted pressure over me, with the fact that I was still standing, it was evident that she had gone easy on me. Bitterly smiling, I couldn't help but ask, "Do I have no other option but to accept?" Amused by my reaction, snorting lightly, Donna said, "Of course you don't." Resting the side of her cheek on her hand, Donna said, "However, don't worry, I am not going to ask you to do this for free. If you somehow pass the tryouts, I will personally coach you in preparation for the upcoming tournament." Frowning slightly, I fell into deep thought. Getting taught personally by Donna, that didn't sound too bad. Let's exclude her beauty aside. One thing that I had noticed in the past 4 months I had been in this world was that I lacked guidance. Everything that I had achieved up to this point was by myself, from reaching F+ rank to reaching the minor realm of mastery for both of my sword arts, all by myself. However, things would have been much easier if I had someone guiding me throughout the process. Oftentimes, I would find myself stuck in front of a wall that I would have to break by myself in order to reach a higher level. I know that I didn't have to worry about my rank not increasing, but regarding my sword arts, without guidance, I really couldn't achieve a higher level by myself, at least not at the pace that I wanted. If only I had someone to guide me throughout the process, perhaps I would have reached a higher level of sword mastery than now. Looking at Donna from the side of my eyes, I couldn't help but realize that she was indeed the perfect person to coach me. With her extraordinary abilities, although she may not use the sword, she could definitely guide me into reaching a higher level. In terms of mana mastery, she was definitely on a league of her own. I could definitely utilize her knowledge to improve myself. Moreover, regarding the tournament thing, although I disliked standing out, as long as no one found out about my real strength, everything was going to be fine. Moreover, I could just participate in the non-combat related events. This way I wouldn't draw too much attention towards myself. And if I looked at this in a positive way, it could serve as good publicity for my mercenary group. Asterisk. Glancing at Donna and seeing her expectant eyes, I could only sigh to myself. Bitterly smiling, I said, "What other choice do I have?" "None." Bitterly shaking my head, I eventually nodded my head. "All right, it'll be there." Smiling widely, Donna took a paper from her bottom drawer and wrote my name on it. "Great, I'll see you in class tomorrow. When the time for the tryouts comes, I'll let you know." "Yeah." Nodding my head in defeat, I glanced at Donna for a couple of more seconds before heading out of her office. I definitely lost this time. This was probably the karma I got as a result of me scamming Melissa. Phew. Sighing in relief, I exited the Section B compound. Donna's request definitely caught me off guard. I had come there expecting myself to just hand in the exchange form and leave, but it seemed like Donna had other plans for me. I was so caught off guard that I didn't have enough time to properly weigh the benefits and the costs of the deal. Just remembering what had happened moments before made me sigh. However, thinking more about the deal that I had made with Donna, my mood brightened a little bit. All in all, the reason I accepted was because at that time, the deal seemed to work in my favor. And now that I had more time to think, I couldn't agree more. After all, Donna was going to be personally coaching me for a while. Yeah, we would also have coaches training us for the tournament, but they weren't going to train us based on skills, but rather train us for specific games. It just wasn't the same. And although Donna didn't practice a swords art, that didn't matter. Her mastery over mana and Cyan control was on a league of her own. Sword arts didn't only focus on swords. No, Cyan control was one of the most important factors when practicing any type of art. Let's take the Keiki style for example. In order for my sword movement to reach such unparalleled speeds, I had to coat my sword with wind scions. If I had better Cyan control, I would estimate that reaching the greater realm of master wouldn't take long. Moreover, because of the fact that we were training mana control, I didn't have to reveal the sword art I was practicing, and it would benefit all of my martial manuals, since better Cyan control would improve not only the Keiki style but my other arts too. Taking this factor into consideration, refusing would have been stupid. The deal was just too good to refuse. Plus, there was another reason as to why I didn't refuse her. Why would I want to antagonize a ranked hero just for a measly tournament? Wasn't worth it. After all, she only asked for me to pass the tryout. She never said that I had to be a key player. If I managed to become a bench player, I would pretty much get all the benefits with barely any effort. There was no point in refusing if it'd end up with me having a bad relationship with her, as, after all, she could help me in the future if needs be. I needed to build connections for the future. If I wanted to make it till the end of the novel, I couldn't just leave bad impressions everywhere I went because of my mindset. I needed to think long-term. There were times where I needed to take a loss well, as long as it wasn't too big of a loss. Though I said that smiling to myself, I couldn't help but realize how favorable the situation was for me. Though it looked like I took a loss, I really didn't. I mean, as I said before, I never really needed to be a key player. All that was required of me was to pass, nothing else. Realizing this, I couldn't help but lightly chuckle to myself. She may have won the battle, but I've won the war. Well, we both profited, so I wasn't too sure about that. Regardless, now that that was over, it was time for me to head back to my dorm. It was already late and I needed to rest. Along the way back to the dorm, recalling something, I typed something on my phone and sent a quick message. It was about time I tackled my biggest problem. Smoke filled the surroundings as the color red enveloped the sky. The sound of falling debris could be heard everywhere as torn buildings and infrastructures appeared everywhere. Obvious signs of skirmishes appeared everywhere as craters and gashes appeared on the empty streets of the current undisclosed location. With some difficulty, an elegant beauty got to her feet. Her skin was white as jade and her long black hair gently fell to the side of her face. She looked absolutely stunning. However, there was something different about her. She had two long black horns on the top of her head. Standing up straight, the matriarch's elegant red gown was now tattered, and the outlines of her curvaceous body were revealed. She stood expressionlessly in the center of the wreckage and surveyed the surrounding destruction, as well as the massive crater around her. Silence covered the area she was in. The atmosphere was so stifling that it made one unable to breathe. Less needed to be said to the demons kneeling beside her. After her contractee Elijah got killed a few months prior, the matriarch found herself in a state of weakness. During the time she was injured, searching everywhere and using her clan resources, the matriarch found out that the one that was responsible for killing Elijah was Amanda Sterndaughter of the guild master of the #1 ranked guild in the human domain. This news caused her to become helpless, as in no way was her tribe able to contend nor even provoke such a behemoth. However, as she went through the reports, she realized that what was reported was fake. As Elijah was her contractee, she managed to somehow glimpse at the scenes before his death hand. From what she saw, the real killer wasn't Amandano, it was someone else. Yet no matter what she did to find out, she had no idea who was responsible. In the midst of her looking for the real killer, she was suddenly ambushed by her fellow clansmen in hopes of overtaking her position. Thus, after a long and arduous fight, she somehow managed to come out on top. After fighting with her life on the line, having lost a part of her strength, the matriarch found herself drained for energy. However, despite her current predicament, she couldn't show it on her face. Forcefully swallowing the iron-like taste that coated the back of her throat, the matriarch spoke. "What have you got to say for yourselves?" Angelica Ch. As soon as the matriarch spoke, one of the demons kneeling on the ground tried to speak up. However, as soon as the first words came out from his mouth, an overbearing pressure enveloped his body completely. Suppressing the demon with some of the last remaining strength she had, the matriarch slowly said, "Oh, it seems like your respect for me has fallen so low that you no longer refer to me by my title." The matriarch's full name was Angelica von Drua, the current head of the Charm tribe, a subsidiary of the Lust clan. The reason for her current outburst was because she was currently the matriarch of her clan. Being referred by her name meant one thing: the demon no longer recognized her as the matriarch. "As soon as you got wind of my injury, you tried to seize your opportunity. How sly." As she spoke, Angelica's gaze was directed towards the few demons kneeling beside her. The latter's usually imposing and arrogant faces were now listless and filled with powerlessness. It was obvious that they were currently being suppressed by the matriarch. "To think that you would be so brave and naive, to think that you could stand up to me, thinking that you could beat me just because I was injured very brave." As Angelica's bare feet moved around the demons, an imposing pressure slowly formulated around her body. It made everyone present unable to look at her in the eyes. How disappointing. Though she tried to hide the news about her injury from her fellow tribesmen, she couldn't hide it for long. They eventually found out, thus they schemed behind her back so that they could take this opportunity to rise in the ranks. Unfortunately, they had miscalculated. Altaf Angelica had been wakened by Elijah's death. She was still, after all, a barren borderline Viscount-ranked demon. They never stood a chance against her to begin with. As her slender jade-like legs moved around the demons, Angelica slowly glanced at each of the demons beneath her. Smiling slightly, she opened her mouth. "Were you just here to fight for my rank, or were you here for something else like?" As she spoke, her every word caused the demons around her to shudder uncontrollably. "And no." Pausing slightly, Angelica's eyes squinted as she looked towards her left, where a black coffin buried within the earth appeared in the central point of a small crater. On it were several pale skeletons' hands outstretched towards a red gemstone embedded in the middle of the coffin. As the skeleton hands reached for the gemstone, it looked as though they were desperately trying to grab it, forming a strange scene where it looked like the skeleton hands were gently hugging the black coffin. Glancing at the coffin, Angelica slightly muttered, "The coffin of the cursed knight." As soon as those words escaped from her mouth, her very presence shone like a star, as a red hue that seemed to envelop the world cascaded towards all of the demons' presence. Spurt. As the red hue expanded, the demons' bodies pulverized into dust. They died instantly. Taking a deep breath, Angelica closed her eyes, seemingly trying her best to recover her energy. A minute after closing her eyes, as if sensing something, Angelica's eyes slightly opened as she looked towards the distance. "What brings you here, Everblood?" Appearing from the other side of a tall building, standing in the air, a 2-meter-tall demon with 2 large bat-like wings covered the sun. Staring at Angelica from above, Everblood slightly laughed. "Cuckoo, it seems like nothing escapes your perception, Madam Matriarch, or would you prefer it if I called you Angelica von Drua?" As soon as those words escaped from Everblood's mouth, as if he had triggered Angelica's reverse scale, an overwhelming pressure bore down on everything that was around her. Everything that was around her blew away as fine miniature crevices appeared beneath the ground of where she was standing. Staring at Everblood with bloodshot eyes, she venomously spat. "It seems like you have a death wish, Everblood." Noticing Angelica's expression, Everblood covered his mouth. From time to time, his body would tremble as he tried his best to hold his laughter. In the end, he failed. What are you laughing at? After a couple of seconds of maniacal laughter, wiping the tears that had appeared on the corner of his eyes, Everblood couldn't help but say, "There's no need for you to pretend anymore." "What are you talking about?" Leisurely standing in the air, Everblood glanced at Angelica with slight contempt in his eyes. "That as of right now you're not my match." As if Everblood's words pierced her heart, Angelica couldn't help but grit her teeth in anger. Staring at Everblood in the air with her jaw clenched, Angelica angrily spat. "So it was you who planned all of this?" Pausing for a moment while still in the air, Everblood shook his hands as he innocently said, No, believe me, I am innocent with regards to this incident." "Then what are you here for?" Pausing, a wide smile appeared on Everblood's face. Glancing at the black coffin in the corner of his eyes, he slowly said, "I am just here to borrow the coffin of the cursed knight." Instantly, the world around Angelica became dyed in red as a humongous pressure bore down on everything that was within her vicinity. Taking a step forward, Angelica glared at Everblood. "How dare you PFFF?" However, before Angelica could finish her sentence, abruptly putting her hand on her mouth, black blood dripped from the gaps of her hands. Noticing Angelica's predicament, licking his lips, Everblood couldn't help but chuckle as he slowly descended from the air. It seems like you've run out of gas. What a pity, cuckoo. Why-oh." Kneeling with one leg on the ground, Angelica gazed at Everblood's figure slowly descending in the air. A hint of helplessness appeared in her eyes. Glancing away from Everblood, Angelica couldn't help but stare at the black coffin a few meters away from where she was. The coffin of Cursed Knight. An ancient demon artifact that she was granted due to her meritorious deeds. It had the miraculous effect of granting fast recovery as well as increased training speed. It was an almost godlike item that every demon below Viscount rank would drool over. Its value was tremendous. If not for her tremendous strength, she would have never been able to keep the coffin until now. However, as soon as news of her contractee dying spread, lower-ranked demons instantly tried to fight her for it. Winner takes all. That was how the demons operated. Even if you were of the same race, the demons didn't care. To them, primordial desires overtook their rationality, prompting them to greedily take whatever they desired. Only through power could a demon rule over another demon, and now that Angelica was in a weakened state, it was her turn to face the music. She was alone and powerless. Here. Throwing a black round object towards Angelica, Everblood made his way towards the black coffin. Swoosh. Taken aback, catching the object with her right hand, Angelica couldn't help but take a look at the object she caught. Demon fruit. Take it as a little compensation for me, borrowing the coffin of the cursed knight. Staring at the demon fruit in her hand, Angelica wanted to throw it back at Everblood, but considering her current strength, she could only helplessly take the fruit. Smiling at Angelica's resignation, Everblood arrived before the coffin. Just the thing I needed. Glancing at the coffin a couple of more times, Everblood nodded in satisfaction. This was indeed what he was looking for. Because of an incident in the past, he had been severely injured and lost a major part of his strength. Now, with the aid of the coffin, he could finally recover from the injury and even climb towards a higher rank. Taking the coffin with both hands, Everblood's smile deepened. Before leaving, glancing at Angelica, who seemed to have lost all reason to live, Everblood amusingly said, "It's time. Listen here, matriarch may have a clue with regards to who was responsible for your little puppy's death." Snapping her head in Everblood's direction, Angelica's face became ferocious. Her body suddenly became revitalized as the ground around her shook. "Ramboth, who you better not be playing tricks on me. Kyukuku, no need to be so aggressive here." Smiling widely, Everblood shook his head. Taking out a picture from out of thin air, Everblood lightly threw it in Angelica's direction. Swoosh. What's this? Catching the picture with her hands, Angelica glanced at it. On it, a picture of a youth with jet black hair and deep blue eyes appeared. In the picture, he was seen wearing a casual set of clothes, walking in a busy shopping district. Glancing at Everblood, Angelica questioningly asked, "Who is this?" Smiling, Everblood didn't respond. If Web. Extending his enormous bat-like wings, he took the large black coffin and slowly levitated in the air. Well, I guess that's it for me. I hope you resolve your little problem. YT. Ignoring Angelica's voice, levitating in the air with the coffin in his hands, Everblood flew in the air. Soon he disappeared into the distance. Helplessly watching Everblood fly in the distance with her coffin, Angelica stared at the picture in her hand. So you are the one. Fue. Burning the picture in her hand, Angelica slowly stood up. Stumbling a couple of steps, she deeply etched the image of the boy in the picture. I don't care if you aren't the one who killed Elijah, but since you are my only lead, you will have to be the one to bear the consequences of my wrath. Not so far from where Angelica was, in the air, glancing below him, the smile on Everblood's face vanished. Oh, how I waited for this moment. Because of what had happened 3 months ago in the dungeon, Everblood has lost a lot of supporters within the tribe he was in. Recalling the humiliation he faced at the hands of a young kid, Baron of Everblood's face couldn't help but savagely twist. Because of you little bastard destroying my clone, I lost part of my strength and everything that I had worked hard for me position, my strength, my honor, everything. Fiercely glaring at the ground below, unbounded thick bloodlust enveloped the area he was in. His bloodlust was so thick that it slowly created a tangible wave of red. Efua. However, the bloodlust left as fast as it came. Staring into the distance, Everblood's smile relaxed. But that's fine. Taking out a similar photo to the one he had given to the matriarch, Everblood caressed it slightly as his face twisted savagely. Looking at the picture, Everblood spoke to it, almost as if he was speaking to the person himself. Can you imagine my surprise when I saw your picture when I was investigating what had happened to Angelica? At first, the very sight of you caused me to be overwhelmed with rage. You wouldn't believe what I went through because of you. Levitating in the air as he casually talked to the picture in his hand, it looked as though Everblood was talking to one of his old lifetime friends. I lost my elder position. I was scorned by those of whom used to be my subordinates, and what made things worse was that I couldn't fight back as my strength dropped below the Baron rank. I was no longer called Baron of Everblood, just Everblood. Pausing, Everblood looked into the distance as he reminisced about the things he went through the past 2 months. After a couple of seconds, staring at the picture in his hands, Everblood continued. In the midst of my despair, the only thing that kept me sane was the very image of you. Just imaging myself torturing you in the worst possible ways caused my heart to shudder uncontrollably. I wanted to meet you so many times. Just imagining myself skinning you alive enthralled me to no end, but I realized something. Stopping there, Everblood's face became serious. Glancing at the picture, he rhetorically said, "Wasn't that a little bit too anticlimactic? Wouldn't killing and torturing you now be a bit too anticlimactic? I wanted you to despair just as much as I did know, on a level that was far beyond what I had experienced." Pausing there, a smile returned on Everblood's face. Recalling something, Everblood's body trembled as he started chuckling uncontrollably. Hukuku, at first I thought that targeting your family would have been enough, but guess what? To my surprise, when I saw them from the distance, they were both already under the Mindbreaker's Curcio the Laughson that day. I laughed like I had never done before. Just imaging your predicament as you found out about your parents' Cursi, the chills I had on that day. Haha. Covering his mouth to stop himself from laughing, Everblood continued. And so, after realizing how much joy I took in from imaging your suffering, I decided to hold back. You just weren't fat enough for me yet. For me to reach an even bigger euphoria, I needed for you to grow even more stronger, more successful, happier when you fall at your highest, that my revenge will finally be complete. Crumpling the picture in his hands, Everblood slowly spat. Only when you have a face of utter despair will I finally be able to wash away the shame that you had given me and finally be complete. Though. Burning the picture in his hands, Everblood stared at the embers flying in the distance. I hope that once I wake up from my little slumber, you will still be alive. After all, I have high expectations of you, Randover. Glancing at the matriarch in the distance, Everblood's smile deepened. Though you may not have been the one who killed her contractee, I am sure Angelica cares none for that, but, oh well, if you can't accomplish this much, what worth is there in me putting all of this effort to get back at Yaokukukuku? If Wep. Flapping his enormous bat-like wings whilst carrying the enormous black coffin with both hands, Everblood disappeared in the distance. Inside of a large skyscraper made out of glass, multiple large portals that emanated strong magical power shone brightly. Vuum. Soon after, as the light died down, a group of people emerged from the portal. They each wore different styled combat suits ranging from thin clothes to large, bulky metallic ones. Each of them carried different weapons, with some holding onto massive swords whilst others holding onto long magic staff. Goodbye, Squad Captain. Thank you very much for today. Hope you guide us again, Squad Captain. Waving goodbye towards the last person that came out, all of the individuals inside the group smiled brightly. It looks like they were all in a good mood. He don't mention it, just doing my job. Waving goodbye to multiple people wearing different colored combat suits, a middle-aged man with a lazy smile on his face and a large cigar in his mouth stood within the lobby of the building. He had black hair, an unkempt beard, and a wild yet commanding aura around him that made everyone near him look at him in respect. Leopold Ray. That was the name of the middle-aged man standing in the lobby. He was a D-ranked hero and a squad captain working for the Moonlight Mercenary Group, a IV-graded mercenary group. His job was fairly easy. All he had to do from day in and day out was train the new recruits that the mercenary group was seeking to recruit. In terms of ranking within the group, he was at the bottom of the mercenary corporation. However, despite being at the bottom of the hierarchy, he was a highly respected individual by all of the new recruits. And that's because he was extremely capable. During dungeon raids, he was meticulous, efficient, and safe. As long as he was in command, the raids would always be successful, with the rookies barely sustaining any injury. Moreover, each recruit managed to learn a lot from Leopold, as he would always calmly instruct them when the situation called for it. However, despite such accomplishments, the higher-ups of his mercenary group didn't bother to promote him nor give him a raise. To them, a D-ranked hero in his late 30s was not worth their notice. Waiting for Leopold at the reception of the establishment, a young girl with custard brown hair and a neat gray uniform greeted Leopold with a professional smile on her face. Taking a stack of bills from the register with both hands, the young girl handed it to Leopold. Welcome back, Leopold. Here's your payment. Oh, thank you, Natasha. Thanking the receptionist named Natasha, Leopold took the stack of bills and slowly counted each and every one of them, not missing a single bill. 100 U, 500 U, 2,800 U, 5,000 Uthays should do for now. Nodding his head, Leopold put the stack of money in his pocket and waved goodbye towards Natasha. I'd say around Natasha. Have a safe day, Leopold. With her usually business-like smile, Natasha waved goodbye to Leopold. Not so far from Leopold, arriving at the lobby of the building, wearing a neat black suit and sunglasses, a young man spotted Leopold in the distance and headed in his direction. Arriving a few meters away from Leopold, the young man said, "Excuse me." Having just received his payment, hearing someone calling out from him, Leopold glanced at the young man before him and asked, "Yes." Smiling brightly, the young man extended his hand towards Leopold. "Hello, Mr. Leopold, let me introduce myself. I am Small Snake." On the same day, not so far from where Small Snake was, Epsilon Cafe. Sitting in the corner of the establishment, in a more secluded area of the cafe, I merrily sipped on my latte. Now that I somewhat sorted out the stuff with regards to the company, it was time for me to finish my next task. I had considered recruiting Ava, but after looking through the files Small Snake sent me, I realized that recruiting her wasn't actually going to be that hard. Therefore, I decided to skip that directly and decided to jump straight into the hardest task first. Somehow convince Kevin into bringing me to Amora. Fortunately, I already knew of a way to convince him, and hence why I was currently sitting inside of a cafe waiting for him. There you are, took me a while to find you. Snapping me out of my thoughts was Kevin's figure. Currently, he was wearing a black hoodie that hid his facial features. Sitting down and taking off his hoodie, Kevin's deep red eyes were revealed. Holding onto a cup of coffee, Kevin glanced at me and asked, "So why did you call me here? Didn't I tell you before I had a deal to make with you?" "A deal?" Glancing at me in confusion after a while, Kevin nodded his head. Although he didn't know what the deal was, he was curious as to why he asked for him to meet him all the way over here, far from the lock. "Yeah. All right, let's hear it." Smiling, I raised my hand in an open palm position. Noticing my action, Kevin's confusion grew. "High five." Shaking my head, I smiled. "No, five. Five." Looking at Kevin straight in the eyes, I slowly said, "5-star sword manual." As those words came out of my mouth, the atmosphere around us froze. "Yeah." I was offering him a 5-star manual. To be more precise, I was giving him something that would have already belonged to him in the future. 5-star manual Levisha style. One of the 3 5-star swords art that I had created for Kevin. If I had to cross-reference back to the novel in terms of the timeline he should have gotten the sword art, it should be in about 2 months' time. However, now that the opportunity presented itself, why not just use it as bait for enticing Kevin into bringing me to Amora? Though I wasn't sure that he would accept, I at least caught his interest. "Hello." Taking a deep breath, Kevin tried his best to retain his composure. A 5-star manual, its value was immeasurable. Even with the system, he doubted he would ever get one in his life. How in the world could he possibly have a 5-star manual? Glancing at Ren, Kevin couldn't help but find him more and more mysterious the more he got to know him. Still, he wasn't impulsive enough to accept the offer like that. He knew that he wouldn't have proposed such a deal unless he wanted something from him. Therefore, taking a couple of seconds to regain his composure, glancing at Ren, he asked, "The catch?" Nodding my head, I didn't answer immediately. "You see, I have an ability that lets me foresee bits of the future." "Huh?" Confused, Kevin looked at me with a skeptical face. Foresee the future. Altaf, it wasn't unheard of in this day and age for someone to have the ability to foresee the future. Those people were a dime in a dozen. Moreover, they would immediately be scouted by the top guilds. That's how sought after they were. Glancing at me with even more confusion, Kevin grew cautious. Why would he reveal to me such important information? Noticing Kevin's internal conflict, I smiled. "You don't believe me?" Pausing slightly, I glanced at Kevin in the eyes and said, "Altaf, it wasn't clear. My ability allowed me to foresee something interesting." Warily glancing at me, Kevin asked, "What?" "That you have the ability to travel through different planets." As soon as my words reached Kevin's ears, almost as if time had frozen, he stared at me with wide eyes. Honestly, I couldn't help but be impressed by the level of bullshit that came out of my mouth. Actually, I wasn't lying when I said I could foresee the future. After all, I did have a book that allowed me to see 10 minutes in the future. But it wasn't in the way I was describing it to Kevin, but still, he didn't need to know that fact. Trying his best to remain composed, Kevin lowered his head and in a low voice he said, "Why, oh, how much do you know?" Smiling, I shook my head. "Not much, just about this far." I knew a lot more, but there was no need for him to become warier of me. I think this was enough for now. After all, I needed his help. I didn't need for him to start becoming apprehensive towards me. "Fu, give me some time to think about it." Taking a deep breath, Kevin slumped back on the chair and fell into deep thought. A 5-star manual. He had to admit the offer was enticing. Problem was, glancing at Ren, who was leisurely drinking his coffee, Kevin couldn't help but think. Should I trust him? Altaf, he had interacted with him in the past. They never actually talked for long, at most 10 minutes. To him, Ren was someone that he couldn't decipher no matter how much he tried. The more he knew him, the thicker the veil of mystery around him became. It sort of felt like he was a being that wasn't supposed to belong to this world. Asterisk. Sighing, Kevin didn't know how to explain his current feelings. It was weird. "Where do you want to go?" So you really can travel through planets. Taken aback, Kevin glanced at me in confusion. Hi. Smiling slightly whilst twirling the cup of coffee in his hands, I meaningfully looked at Kevin. Well, to be honest, although I can foresee the future, not every one of my visions turns out to be true. But now that you just asked where I wanted to go, it seems like you really do have the ability to different planets. Interesting. Opening his mouth, no words came out from Kevin's mouth. Did I just get played? Amore. Hi. That's the planet I want to go. Amore, are you crazy? Opening his eyes wide, Kevin couldn't but stand up and look at me in shock. It had to be noted that, although Kevin had never been to Amora before, he had a detailed description of the planet from his system. According to the system, if he went to Amara with his current abilities, only death would await him. From what he read, he had to be at least C+ to be ranked in order to even think about stepping foot in that place yet. He was currently being asked to go there now. The current Kevin right now was only D ranked. How can a D rank like him step foot into such a dangerous place? Wasn't that just like asking him to kill himself? I am sorry, but... Placing my hand forward to stop Kevin from speaking, I took one big gulp of my latte before saying, "Don't be so hasty with your refusal." "No, I'm not being hasty, I'm just not crazy." Putting my now empty cup on the table, I glanced at Kevin and said, "How about this next weekend, Saturday, meet me outside of the train station. I will prove to you that there's no need to worry." Shaking his head, Kevin stood up. "Still no." As I watched Kevin getting ready to leave while still leisurely relaxing in my seat, I asked, "Are you really willing to sacrifice your chance to get a 5-star sword art like that? I mean, all you have to do is follow me next week, and you decide whether you're up for it or not." Halting his steps, biting his lips, Kevin couldn't help but feel tempted. A part of him really wanted to just leave and ignore this deal. However, if he really had a chance of getting his hands on a 5-star martial manual, he couldn't just give up like that. If he wanted to exterminate the demons responsible for killing his parents, he had to become stronger. Although he was currently on the right track, Kevin couldn't but feel that his progress was still too slow. He wanted to get stronger faster. He wanted nothing more but to kill those that were responsible for his parents' death. Just imagining how much stronger he would get once he got his hands on a 5-star manual, Kevin couldn't help but feel himself waver. "Yo." Taking a deep breath, glancing at Ren from behind, he said, "Give me some time, I still need to think things through." Smiling slightly, I nodded. "Take your time, you have until next week to give me an answer." "Thank you." Seriously nodding his head, Kevin left the cafe. "Hi." A minute after Kevin left, right after Kevin's figure disappeared in the distance, I couldn't help but notice a white bill on the table. Taken aback, glancing at the entrance of the cafe, I couldn't help but shout, "Hey, you still haven't paid for your coffee." Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.